It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. I am Marco Nobles. We have our virtual studio open, and we've had a number of very, very special guests over the last few weeks. And we have another extremely special guest joining us in our virtual studio, the iconic stage, star of stage, screen, Grammy Award nominee, Melba Moore is with us in our virtual studio. Miss Moore, it is a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. You have a special performance coming up, one woman show from Broadway with Love coming up at 54 Below
Yes.
on July 9th and 10th. Um, Talk about the purpose behind this show because you've been doing a lot of performances over the last couple of years, but this one is a little different. So talk about from Broadway with Love and why now is the time to do this.
Okay. Well, over the last few years, I've had, fortunately, quite a bit of success in the recording side of my career. So those are the audiences that you usually call me out to do performances. So my performances are targeted to that part of my life and my career. But 54 Below is primarily focuses on the venue focuses on people from theater
Mm,
and especially Broadway. So for that room, then I really tried to tailor make my performance for my life and my career in the Broadway theater. Well, other parts of theater too, but primarily Broadway.
right. So in a way, it's kind of going back to some of your roots because your early success was through Broadway.
Absolutely, yeah. I won't say it was my roots because I didn't have no clue what I was getting into, but as far as making me known to the public, it really has been theater. Yeah.
Right, right. Um, Now, and you haven't, you mentioned you've been doing more recordings over the last few years, but you have kind of dipped your toe back in the theater here and there, or reconnecting with your theater roots. I'll say, even with the remake of Pearly Victorious on Broadway, and to be able to
Right.
be a part of that
Susie,
to a
which
degree.
by the way, Miss Kara got a Tony Award.
Yes,
And I like to,
yes.
she said she watched the video of me doing it. So I take some credit for her being good.
As well you should, as well you should, because she played your character
Yeah.
and really kind of modeled her portrayal of the character after your portrayal of the character, even though the version of Pearlie that you did was more musical, wasn't it, or was it?
It was musical. Actually, I guess you might say I patterned my version after Miss Ruby Dee because she was the original Ludabelle Gussie Mae Jenkins. In the
Mm,
comedy performance, which was written by Ossie Davis for himself and Miss Ruby, primarily because there were no projects on Broadway for Black people. So he wrote and created Pearly Victorious, which was a comedy without music. There was no music at all, and it was not a musical. But Pearly was musical. Almost everything. Well, an operetta is when you sing, you do the whole story totally in music. Pearly wasn't that, but it was a musical, very different from the comedy um, version, which had no music.
right, right. Now you mentioned Carrie Young won Tony for her portrayal of the character in Pearly Victorious. You also won a Tony for your portrayal in Pearly, right?
I sure did. Yeah. Yes.
So, so that it's an interesting kind of lineage that playing the same character. Both of you won Tony Awards.
I hope so. I think so. I think we both followed. Well, I followed Miss Ruby D. She followed me, so it is kind of a lineage. Hopefully, we are passing it down in terms of the quality. I hope so.
Right. As we talk about passing it down, you are now what I call foundation artists. You are your music is one of those that is the foundation on what so many other newer artists build themselves around, or they they've listened to you and been influenced by you and others like you.
Yes.
And you are in the space a lot with newer artists these days. Do you feel that? um
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, um, Matter of fact, I was so excited. I got to. Do you know who Faith Evans is?
I do.
She gave me a call yesterday.
That's awesome.
So I mean, yeah, and they're incredible artists uh, out here that are what I call like, I mean, super singers and super actresses, like Audra McDonald, for
Mm,
instance, who's on Broadway now, and I can't think of, but there's so many really, really. I mean, okay, we could think about in gospel, say Yolanda Adams, or
mm.
in gospel, say BB Winans, BBCC Winans, um, or I'm trying to think. There's this beautiful guitarist and singer called Her,
Yes,
and she
yes.
didn't pattern herself after me. But what I'm trying to say is that that's R&B music. That's the legacy, and it's so exquisite. And they're all very well trained, and all most of them also dance.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes,
So I think that we've laid down the foundation for real excellence. And when you
right.
see the new artists, they look like, I mean, they act like, would you ever, well, have you ever seen, well, I'm sure you have. Have you seen some of Beyonce's performances,
Absolutely,
or
absolutely.
Fantasia,
Yep.
or I can mention some others? They're like super, not just super ladies, but super artists. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's our foundation of trying to create real quality so that they could have something not only to be excited about, but actually to build on. And they are. Oh, they are so fabulous. And I'm just mentioning a few. I think
Yes,
the whole newer generation, they are well talented, of course, but they're well skilled and well studied. They're well organized, and they do good business. That's
right,
very, very important, because if you don't have the business right, you however great and well even the other parts of your production are, you can still lose it all.
right. It's interesting you mentioned that because you had, public, issues around the business part of show business. Um, and as I mentioned, you're around a lot of younger artists. Certainly in these last few years, based on social media and the way artists have gravitated to you, have do they ask you some of those questions? Do they even know about some of that? Because many of them are also just learning about you and all that you've been through.
Well, you looking at it from the perspective, I think, of new artists coming along and maybe fans, but I'm looking at it from the reason I'm even out here is because of new songwriters and producers like George Pettis and his
Mm,
wife Angela Pettis, and Terry Hunter, who started out as young, club DJs.
yes.
But if you look at what D Nice has done. He's an
Yep.
entrepreneur. He's a mover. That everybody has moved up. And what they do is they come back and they call me Auntie Melba, and they say, would you like to be a part of what we're doing now? So that's what puts me out here. They ask me questions, but they really are the gatekeepers now. So I'm looking at their wisdom, because we have a whole reconstruction of our systems now. And if you don't understand how that works, no matter how, even what a good business person is, you can't participate in it, because it works very differently than the way it did before. So they really have to kind of, in a way, partner and in some ways lead us. Because
Mm.
you see, I just got off the phone with my daughter to even get on the talk with her. That's
Right.
of course, she said, she works with me now, and one of the songs I have, "Take Her Picture Down," is on her label, because I'm not only passing it down, and I'm not only teaching her and letting her learn off me, but I'm learning from her what could only be learned from the generation that is here now. We just don't have a connection with it, and even if you do, it's too much to take in, because you still have to stay healthy and vital. And the older you get, the harder that is. That gets to be your full-time job, just surviving. So
Right.
I feel like it's more of a partnership, and you have to kind of give them the space to experiment and make mistakes if they do, so you can learn how things go now.
Mm.
So I mean, I
Absolutely.
have two very, very, very successful recordings, because I have songwriters and producers that are of today, and they're younger now. They have
Right.
great respect and knowledge of how music was done 10, 20 years ago, and this a lot, especially I'll say, well, both songs will probably fit in the jazz category, although my song specifically fits in house music, and
Hmm.
it's a dance song. But when you hear the music, you hear the remnants of uh, um, back in the 60s and 50s, what was then called modern jazz. You hear those beautiful chord changes. You hear the instruments they use on No Filter. We have live horns and acoustic instruments. It's not all just electronic, although you could do that. So I think what we've also provided for them as an excitement and a love for and a respect for the past, not just the present or the future. So you hear a mixture of all of those things, and of course, I can only be what I can be. So,
Right.
but I think the combination makes it all relevant, so that I'm not just part of the past, and they're not just part of the future. It's a family affair. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. We are talking with the legendary Melba Moore. She has a special show coming up, or two nights, July 9th and 10th at 54 Below from Broadway with Love. Well, I'm going to come back to the show in a minute, but you mentioned some of your newer recordings. Of course, we got to talk to you when you released your last album, Imagine, which had some wonderful songs on it. And you have a couple of new singles that are being released now.
Yes. One of them is called Take Her Picture Down. That's the latest single from the same album, Imagine. I think also, depending on how it works out for you, your album can have a longer shelf life because
Mm,
you're not squished into somebody's um, timetable that really kind of divorces you and how your life and your career is going. But before we had like several different record companies, and if you weren't part of that system, you didn't have music out that was, you couldn't be heard on the radio. There was no outlets for you. But so many people have come into that era, either by age or for the type of artistry that they have, that they don't necessarily fit with the classic record companies that are there, till the business has become a business of independence.
yes.
So that's another whole way of doing things, which means if you have a system that works and you can plug directly into your followers, your stuff can go quickly or it can have a longer shelf life. Now, Imagine is almost 2 years old now, but we're just dropping a new single, and it gives the album all new life again, and also No Filter, all those in a totally different. Maybe because it's in a totally different category, they actually can help each other because they don't clash with each other. This is very different than the way music worked before.
Right, right. Um, going back to the show from Broadway with Love,
Yes.
um, given is especially given being able to work with uh, the newer generation of artists, is this a chance to this kind of, I guess, cross pollinates your audience now? I mean, there are still a number of people who remember you, on Broadway and all of the Broadway things that you've done, all the theater stuff that you've done, Broadway and off Broadway. Um, and then there are those who will who know Melba Moore from um, the hit recordings that you've had, and you can kind of bring those two audiences together and educate you know the audiences about different portions of your career.
Well, cross pollinated is a very good way to describe it, because this is about the fourth or fifth time I've been invited back to come to do 54 Below, and I was really doing it strictly Broadway, but I've got so many requests that said, "Would you please include some of the recordings that we have come to know you for?" So I think they're cross pollinating me. So yes, and of course, way back, I'll say, like, well, even before then it was even more so the case. But when I came into the theater in the '70s, um, especially for Black people, because of the racism and the conscious separation, the recording industry for Black people was R&B, and so people like Michael Jackson just tore that system up and did more than cross over. They destroyed the barriers between.
Right.
That took it opened the way for all different kinds of entertainment, period, especially music, to influence Broadway theater, because it was very strictly like a Broadway style of performing, which was very, very white, had no kind of bottom or beat to it, or like I call it the boom boom. And of course, there were
Mm,
no stories about Black people, so Black people didn't go to the theater. But now that's not the case at all, and uh, we've had the autobiographies of Michael Jackson, which has been running quite a long time now. We've had the
yep.
autobiography of Miss Tina Turner,
Hmm.
and we have a theater named after Miss Lena Horne.
Yes. Yes.
Much, much more, but Thank goodness, like America, it's evolving.
Right, right. Do you see this as a way to stretch yourself, meaning doing this show from Broadway with Love, and do you look for additional ways to stretch yourself? I mean, you've been in the industry, um, decades and done so much. So I'm wondering if when you're looking at different projects, that okay, I need to try to figure out how I can stretch myself and do something different, and then a show like From Broadway with Love comes about.
Absolutely. It gives me the opportunity to think beyond what I would normally think if it was just one category or the other. And I really just had to go within those confines. Uh, I'm stretching it because of the time factor. I really didn't have time to have someone who's a professional script writer to come and do the piece for me. So I have
Hmm.
to stretch myself in terms of, okay, well, I don't want to turn the opportunity down. So I guess I better learn how to write my own story a little bit. And because I'm saying, well, you should be writing your stories. Somebody else can't tell you a story. So if you don't have any experience, then you better stretch yourself and figure out how to use this opportunity to start to script your own entertainment, your own story, your own autobiography. When you write the book, you should write it with someone, but you should write it. I hadn't done that before, but I'm starting to do that now. And of course, as you said, I've done this for decades now, so it's time for me to stretch myself to whatever is my upper next level. And that
Hmm.
means, okay, I realize that I'm limited in terms of scripting because I haven't done it that much. So I said, but okay, but I can tell some of the wonderful experiences that I had, and I don't want it to be just the shows that I did. So I stretched it out to do tributes to people like Barbara Streisand, which stretches me in telling stories and scripting and performing it, but also doing her songs, which is another
Hmm.
one I would be doing. That stretches me tremendously. And of course, if I don't do a good job, it's a great risk because they're going to be, everybody knows, and I don't care what race you are, we all love Barbara Streisand. So there's
Yes.
a comparison. So it's absolutely stretching. And of course, I'm going to do, I say, of course, to myself. Of course, I'm going to do a tribute to Miss Lena Horne, and we all know and love her. And
Yes.
so, whatever it is I do has to both honor her, but it has to be something I can do because I can't sing like Lena. So
Hmm.
that's another great risk. Well, it wouldn't be if I hadn't already tried it out. What is
It-
it like her?
I
You
find
know
it
what? It's
interesting.
really stretching yourself. So
Yeah.
over time, in putting these pieces together, yes, I really had to come outside of whatever I thought and try to think about, well, what are people going to see? What are people going to listen to? And then test it out to see what is the real result going to be. Yeah.
Right. I find it interesting when you say you can't sing like Lena Horne, because I would think most people would think they can't. There's no way they could sing like Melba Moore, because of the vocal range that you have, the notes that you can hit, and very few people can do that. But uh, from a technical standpoint, I guess even if someone else can't hit those same notes, and you're doing a tribute to someone, you still have to figure out how to make it your own and still be true to them in their style to a degree, I guess.
Yes, I think make it meaningful to the audience is the primary goal. What you the way what you said is absolutely true, but I think what I'm saying is the other side of the same side of what you're saying, that you get to that thought of setting that goal because you know it has to be for them. However you think it is, you have to test it out to make sure it's what they came to see.
Right, because I know, like most of us as fans would think, well, Melba Moore can sing anything. You hear what you hear she sings, and you hear you know, especially if they hear you live and be able to hear you go through the progression of different songs and different styles, and that we would think that Melba Moore can sing anything she wants.
No,
But but you're saying that that's not the case.
no, because as you like we're speaking, and when people listen to this, they can tell the difference between your voice and mine because we're structured differently.
Mm,
So I'm going to know that it's you, and they're going to know that it's someone else. And if even if I sang every note the same as Miss Lena Horne, you could tell the difference that it's not me and that it's her because our voice is like a fingerprint.
Mhm, mhm,
There's
mhm,
certain things that you can't really go outside of and express yourself, unless you're one of those people who are good mimics and you can really sound like somebody else. And I can't do that.
mm. Right. Um, you mentioned some of the shows. Obviously, you'll be featuring uh, in the show from Broadway with Love, July 9th and 10th at 54 Below. You mentioned you'll be doing stuff from some of the plays you've been involved in. You mentioned you'll be uh, paying tribute to some others, like a Barbara Streisand, the Lena Horne, and then you'll be doing, some of the stuff from your recordings, you know, Grammy nominated and stuff and all that. Um, any other surprises, or if you tell us that maybe it won't be as much of a surprise, but a little hint of kind of what people can expect?
I think the greatest surprise is that I never really talk about because you want to talk about the basic content, which is the music, but it's really a small theater piece. It's really a little mini play with music.
Mm,
So, been in a little beautiful supper club. You ain't got no sets,
nice. Okay.
and you don't have any costumes. So I kind of try to do that with what I'm wearing and doing, so that you have a sense that we really are changing characters
Mm,
and we're changing time periods.
mm.
Because I want it to be theater,
Okay. And
not in a
hence,
theater.
your own one woman show in a supper club.
Yes.
Once again, we've been talking with Melba Moore, the legend, the show coming up from Broadway with Love at 54 Below. You can go to the website and get all the information about the shows July 9th and 10th. Get information, look and see what tickets you want to get. You have time. You have a couple weeks to kind of
Yeah.
get your evening plan, get your people together so you
Please.
could experience the wonderful Miss Melba Moore, as she shares part of her journey through music, through theater, and through her experience. Miss Melba Moore, it's always an honor to speak to you. We thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us and sharing some of your history, knowledge, and perspective.
Well, you are so good at asking questions and having conversation. I not only enjoyed this, but you do a really, really great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That is such an honor. Once again, Melba Moore from Broadway with Love, July 9th and 10th at 54 Below. Thank you so much, Miss Moore.
Yeah, God bless you.
God bless you. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio.
Yes, indeedy.